guys, it's me Seren, back with another video. I have like the wild bedhead right now. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to Target. This is gonna be my yearly video on collectives. I feel like I have had to make this video at least once a year, every year, about like various situations, and of course I will have links to some of those older videos in the description box. It's just like every year, like I have to have this conversation in one way or another, be it like yes all white, hashtag like yes all white people, where I talk about like, you know, whiteness as a collective, be it, you know, just talking about like race and gender. And even now, as we're starting to get into these conversations about you know, the recognizing of the descendants of American chattel slavery as our own ethnic group, right, like as our own collectives really still seem to confuse people. And I feel like that's because, especially in capitalism period, and a capitalist society period, but especially in America, especially in the West, we are hyper individuals. We are raised with this hyper individual mindset and mentality of, you know, I'm an individual, I'm an individual, I'm an individual, I'm an individual. I have to look out for myself. I have to look out for number one first. I don't care about anybody else. That's capitalism, right? Like greed is good. Like you got to look out for number one, and you have to look out for the bottom line of number one. And I feel like this type of mindset has really like, I feel like hyper individualism is just fucking trash. And that shit has led to like so many problems, and so many of the problems that we're seeing right now in terms of people, yet again, chasing a check, chasing money, chasing capital. Thank you, capitalism. You know, chasing what's going to be best, maybe perhaps for their individual careers, or, you know, to get the most fame and attention and, you know, stuff for themselves, without saying, you know, well, how does this affect the Black diaspora as a collective? How does this affect descendants of American chattel slavery? How does this affect, you know, various ethnic groups, even within the Black diaspora? We don't have no type of concept of collectives. And the shit that really fucking bothers me about that is, number one, everybody belongs to collectives. I really don't know when it became an insult. When did the word collective become an insult? Because people really get fucking insulted when you fucking say things about collectives, right? And like, this is the way that shit is affecting collectives, and this is the way that things work in terms of collectives. 9 times out of 10, I mean, of course there are exceptions to every rule, but like 9 times out of 10, you know, the way that oppression works in particular, it works by oppressing collectives. Ooh, my tree, sorry. It works by oppressing collectives, right? So it's sort of like when I say like, yes, all white people are fucking racist, right? All white people are racist because we live in a fucking racist white supremacist society that socializes and conditions everyone to have certain types of ideas about white people. And in white people, this manifests as anti-black racism. And in black people, this manifests as internalized anti-blackness, as colorism, as all these things that we all have to actively fight and work very hard to try to fucking unlearn and have some fucking self-awareness, right? When you say that, what is the first thing people say? I'm an individual. I'm an individual. I'm an individual. You can't tell me that I'm being affected by something because I'm an individual. It's like, just because, I mean, like, sure, like you're an individual in the sense that like every fucking human being is different, sure, but identity, which we've talked about before, operates on these sort of sliding scales where people do belong to collectives, you know? Belonging to the collective of man is a collective. Belonging to the collective of woman is a collective. Belonging to the collective of black is a collective. DACS is a collective. Able-bodied is a collective. Straight is a collective. These are collectives. They're groups. They're identity groups. They are parts of what make up our identity. And especially if we're going to start talking about infrastructure, and if we're going to start talking about, you know, decolonizing. I've talked for years, literally years and years. I know that people do not watch older videos. Like, you guys see one video and you leave a comment, But it's just like, please check out my must-watch playlist to see some older videos of mine that I feel like it's really important to watch to get a handle on my ideas. Because me personally, I am a separatist. I'm not an integrationist. I think integration was a mistake. I'm not in favor of integrating into any type of white power structures. I'm not in favor of integrating into any type of white hierarchical structures or systems. I'm in favor of autonomous black communities, global autonomous black communities that operate outside of white mainstream supremacist infrastructure. So any argument that any of y'all even try to bring to me that involves like white supremacist infrastructure, I'm not going to be with it. I don't care what your argument is, because I am a separatist. Like, I am not about fucking integration. I think integration was a trap. I think it was a mistake. I have a whole video on integration. Please watch it. So it's just like, we really need to like stop with this hyper individualism. It's fucking garbage. It's trash. It's going to be the death of all of us, because instead of focusing on the fact that we are a part of collectives, we do exist in terms of collectives, that does matter in terms of fucking oppression, because people are oppressed in terms of collectives as well. Very few people are individually being motherfucking picked out like Pikachu, I choose you, to be fucking oppressed. People are being oppressed in terms of what collective they belong to at any given moment in time, because due to the fact that identity operates on something of a sliding scale, which I've talked about on this channel before, you can be privileged in one collective and oppressed in another collective. Those two things can happen at the same time, right? You can fucking be an active participant in the oppression of another collective, and yet you can be oppressed by someone else. Yet again, the foreign blacks come to mind immediately. They can be oppressed by white people within a white supremacist mainstream infrastructure, and yet they can also utilize their foreign privilege to their advantage and oppress the native-born blacks here in the United States. Both of those things can be true due to the way that collectives work, okay? Stop thinking you are a hyper-individualism that can opt out of being in a collective. Stop thinking you are a hyper-individualist, that can opt out of having an understanding of power structures. Unless you are working to create entirely autonomous, independent, self-sustaining black communities on a global level, which is my ultimate goal, to create global black strongholds, you are participating in a collective, right? It's just really weird to me that collectives became this like dirty word. Like, don't let me in that collective. Well, but like, you are in that collective. You're in that collective. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's like, yet again, people pick and choose. Like, people pick and choose when they're okay with it. They pick and choose when they're okay with it. Yet again, people are really fine to be identified by an ethnic group and by a flag and by that type of collective nationality. But then when descendants of American chattel slavery, DACS, say, well, we want to be recognized by our collective as well. We want to, we want to be understood in terms of what's going on with us in particular. We don't want to continue being lumped in under this umbrella term of just black that everybody is under, because no one is understanding what is happening to us as a distinct group. We need our distinction as a collective. We need it. Now all of a sudden, oh, it's a problem. Oh, we're all the same. Oh, we're all just black. Oh, we're all just this. Oh, we're all just that. Again, going back to hashtag yes all white people, you say all white people are racist because they've all been socialized and conditioned that way. They've all been raised in a racist white supremacist society, and they all benefit from anti-black racism. And they say, well, I'm an individual. You can't tell me I'm an individual. It has nothing to do with you being a fucking individual. Nothing. It's all about the way that you belong to a collective, and then the way that you will be treated by the infrastructure as such because you belong to the collective. Now again, and just like I said in my hashtag yes all white people video, I was like, unless you're living out in the woods like motherfucking Nell, which is opting out entirely of the mainstream infrastructure, right? In order to be completely autonomous, like the homesteaders, you know, living out. Okay, like, y'all probably not even watching this video right now because you may or may not have internet, right? So, like, I'm not even talking to those people. Like, I'm not even talking to y'all. Like, I applaud y'all, like, all of y'all that, like, go off the grid and shit like that. Like, that's ultimately something that I want to do, but we're not even going to go there. Like, you belong to a collective. Stop thinking you're a hyper individual. Stop thinking that you fucking insecure. My insecure video. People are like, well, I watched the show and my friends watched the show. Okay. What does that have to do with fucking collectives? Nothing. Nothing. Just like I said in my fucking video that I had to do last summer while I was in Canada, when I said your individual experiences don't outweigh systemic racism. I had to do a whole fucking video because people were really on some shit like racism does not fucking exist because like they personally, well, I personally experienced this and that. I personally individually experienced this and that growing up. I personally individually watched this show or listened to this song and I personally like it. The world does not revolve around you. The world, again, like we are raised so hyper individual to think the world revolves around us. We have no concept of collectives. We have no concept of other people. We have no concept of what is good for groups, you know? Like, I'm all about collectives. I know I've said that in several other videos. That is what this channel is really about. It is about collectives. It is about Black people as a collective. It is about DACS as a collective. It is about how do we work in terms of collectives, right? To eject from a racist white supremacist system and infrastructure to create these autonomous Black communities in terms of a collective. How do we do what's best for the group, not the 1%, the group? Get your hyper individual heads out of your fucking assholes. Just because you do something, it doesn't mean anything, right? You're not an individual. You're part of a collective. I just felt compelled to make this because I was having a conversation with somebody this morning about it. And I was just like, I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of having to have this conversation. Like, we are all part of collectives. I know your parents told you you were special and an individual and that, you know, being part of a group doesn't matter, but it does matter. And we all need to start thinking about fucking how do we fucking pull our own weight within a collective and fucking work for the betterment of more people and not just your fucking self, and take into consideration what other people are saying. And stop looking at collective as a bad word, and stop thinking that the world revolves around you and you this hyper individual and that you can fucking counter what's real. Like, people are really living in fucking denial. Like, y'all are really still plugged in to the Matrix hardcore, and I'm just not. So, I don't know. I know this video was kind of like all over the place and rambly, but I hope some of you guys get what I'm trying to say. I will include, like I said, links to other videos in the description box that I would suggest you guys watch. But yeah, like, again, like, I'm not an integrationist. I'm a separatist. Like, I'm not with all this, you know, I don't know, trying to work within white mainstream infrastructure and this and that. Like, no, I'm not with that shit. Like, if I see something like interesting that I want to support, like, I will support it. But like, ultimately, I want like autonomous Black communities. I want Black people running our own shit, telling our own stories. I want DACS running our own shit, telling our own stories. I want foreign Blacks running y'all own shit, telling y'all own stories, which I have repeatedly said since my very first video, fucking getting on y'all for this shit, FBs. Like, everybody is so plugged in. Everybody is so plugged the fuck in. And so, again, just believing in their hyper individualism and their special motherfucking snowflakeness. And that shit is not real life. So, I gotta go buy some fucking bins. They're gonna be overpriced because capitalism, but I need them. And I don't want to buy them from Amazon because I'm not trying to support Jeff Bezos, aka Satan. So I'll see you guys next time. Food for thought as always. Peace.